Hello everyone, this is Leah Whitehorse, and in this recording I'm going to be talking about Mercury Retrograde in Aries. So let's get some dates out of the way first. I will put a list of these at the bottom as well so that you have them there for reference. So Mercury entered Aries on the 10th of March 2024. And it will station retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries on the 1st of April. It will conjoin the Sun on the 12th of April. That is the midpoint of the retrograde period at 22 degrees of Aries. It will station direct at 15 degrees of Aries on the 25th of April. And then Mercury will leave the shadow zone on the 13th of May. And then Mercury will finally exit Aries on the 15th of May. So we have Mercury in Aries from the 10th of March all the way through to the 15th of May. So 2 months of this energy being in play. It tells us that we have a lot of work to do here, a lot of reviewing to do here. So Mercury, generally speaking, when it's in retrograde motion, in fact, we could say this with any retrograde planet, it is about internalizing, going within to reflect upon the themes that the retrograde symbolizes. So with Mercury, we know that this is something about how we think and conceive of things, what we know, the information available to us, and communicate this with others. So generally, communication issues, how we think about things, and it's all centered in Aries. So Aries tells us that there is something about our personal perspective, our personal communication style, how we are thinking and speaking of ourselves, to other people. This needs to be reviewed. And we are I feel like we're trying to find our voice, because Aries is the first of all the signs. It's a fire sign. It's associated with springtime in the northern hemisphere. It is an uprush of energy. It's confident. It's like, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to do. It's very direct. It's assertive. But sometimes it's hard to find our voice, to speak up, to assert our opinion or idea if we don't know who we are or don't know what we want, or we're just scared of being heard. I'm scared to speak up, says Mercury retrograde in Aries. And yet we need to be able to speak up, but in the right way, because the shadow of Aries it can be very confrontational. It can be a bit selfish. It's a bit me. So we need to know how to assert our ideas and opinions and thoughts, and to be able to decide for ourselves in a way that doesn't antagonize or inflame everything around us. We don't want to be kind of shooting our mouths off, particularly with Mercury retrograde in Aries. It is not the time to start an argument, but it might be the time to revisit certain themes, certain problems, certain conflicts, to get our heads straight in that regard, so that we can then speak plainly and hopefully resolve that situation. So Mercury is going to cover those degrees that I mentioned. So from 15 Aries through to 27 Aries. We'll just widen it a bit and say 14 Aries through to 28 Aries. If you have any planets or important points, particularly the angles and the nodes in your chart that are around these degrees, then your chart is going to be more impacted by this retrograde period. I know that there are a lot of scare stories that happen with Mercury retrograde, and the newspapers go wild about it because it's something to write about. And we get all this like, don't do this and don't do that on Mercury retrograde. Everything's going to go wrong. My personal sort of perspective on this is like with any transit, a transit is happening for us, not to us. It's happening for a reason. My experience is I tend to find Mercury retrogrades quite challenging sometimes, and this one is going to be really hitting my chart as well. But I always find that whatever goes wrong, in inverted commas, whatever goes wrong tends to be put right by the time Mercury goes direct. And also it puts me in a much better position. So it's really interesting that Mercury retrograde often challenges the ego to let go a little, because sometimes we want things, especially in Aries, we want things to be in a certain way. We want it to happen now. We want it to be like this. And there is no room for any grey areas. And then the universe, Mercury, comes along and says, hey, let's kind of rethink this, because actually maybe you haven't seen the full picture, or you haven't got the information that you needed, or you're just thinking about it wrongly. Maybe this has come from feeling really triggered, especially Aries. So we're going to create a situation here that seems like you're going backwards, but actually it is necessary to clear the way so that you can move forwards confidently in the future. Generally, I do subscribe to the idea that if you can put off a really major decision or a really major purchase whilst Mercury is retrograde, then I would say, okay, go with that. Let this Mercury retrograde period pass and then make your purchase or make your decision. However, life, of course, is not always like that. If you're having to make an important decision or, sign on the dotted line for something or make some kind of purchase, if you have to do that during Mercury retrograde, then maybe Mercury retrograde energy is exactly what is required for that particular scenario. So if it's unavoidable, don't stress about it. Mercury is saying, this is what you need from me. We need this internalized energy for this decision, project, or purchase. So Mercury stations retrograde on the 1st of April. I can't ignore the fact that it's the 1st of April. Mercury is the trickster. And in the UK, I don't know whether this translates to other areas. I should have looked this up. But in the UK, April Fool's Day is this day where things go a little wild and people play tricks on one another. I don't really like it. It freaks me out a bit. But, sometimes people enjoy silly jokes and we get kind of silly news items that are clearly not real. So they can be amusing sometimes. And I guess at the end of the day, April Fool's Day, everyone is a fool, everyone is silly, and it's trying to get us to laugh. It's trying to get us to relax a little. And maybe that's the point, that we need to chill out a bit, because there is a lot of heat in the picture right now with all this kind of emphasis on Aries. We're going to have Mercury in a conjunction with Eris as it stations retrograde. So Eris, she is the one that comes along and throws the rotten apple in the mix and says to the goddesses, oh, you choose between you who is the fairest. And they're all squabbling and arguing with one another. It does feel quite tempestuous at the moment. And of course, we are in the middle of eclipse season as well, coming up to a really major total lunar eclipse, the Great American Eclipse that is connected with this comet. And, there's all manner of things coming up there, and Jupiter conjunct Uranus, by the way, as well. So everything feels pretty discordant right now, which is very Eris. So yeah, maybe the fact that this is kind of kicking in on the 1st of April, it's just giving us a pointer to say sometimes we need to know when to laugh at life. Sometimes we need to know when to not take things so personally or so seriously. So perhaps this is one of the teachings of Mercury retrograde in Aries. The Sabian symbol of Mercury's station degree is a large audience confronts the performer who disappointed its expectations. So wow, that's a bit of a loaded symbol. So maybe there is something here about the fact that we feel disappointed. But then the word expectation kind of tells us that maybe our expectations have been too high. It doesn't mean that you lower the bar so low that, you kind of expect everything to let you down or disappoint you. But sometimes we do expect a lot, and that tends to be because of certain judgments, certain ways of thinking. So yes, maybe we need to look at our expectations and what those expectations are based upon. Fire, Aries, can be connected with our beliefs. And maybe we need to adjust our expectations so that they are more realistic. Because if we have got our expectations too high, then life is just constantly going to feel like a big disappointment. And Aries needs to feel motivated. So maybe, as Mercury goes retrograde, one of the things that might manifest for some of us, if it's hitting the chart strongly, is I'm feeling demotivated. This is not what I expected, or this is not what I wanted. And so Mercury says, okay, let's just sit with that. Let's go back over this and explore. What are you feeling? Just pay attention to the 9th of April. So we're kind of going after the eclipse here. On the 9th of April, the moon will conjoin Mercury. And so we have an opportunity on that date to just feel into this Mercury retrograde. What is my gut telling me here about this feeling that I'm not getting what I wanted, or I can't speak up, or I can't decide, or I'm not being heard? What am I feeling here? The moon conjunct Mercury on the 9th of April. 12th of April, as I mentioned before, this is when the sun is conjunct Mercury. So the sun's conjunction to Mercury is the moment of illumination. Mercury sits on the throne of the sun, receiving wisdom from source. He will then translate that to us. Often, this is the time when we sort of go, oh, that's what this is about. And we really start to get that vibe. We kind of know this is why this bit here has not been working, this bit of my life, this communication problem. This is why it's not really been working. And now I have an idea. I have an inkling. There is some kind of illumination mentally, some kind of information even that is coming through to me, literally or metaphorically, that is giving me some guidance on what needs to happen next. We might not be able to put it all into motion because we're only halfway through the Mercury retrograde, but it is a turning point where something is revealed that is important. The Sabian symbol of this Mercury-Sun conjunction is a pregnant woman in a light summer dress. So that really is a beautiful symbol that shows us that there are things in development here. Maybe they're not ready to be born yet. And we don't need to be weighed down by that. She's wearing a light summer's dress. So she's kind of, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the weather. Sometimes we do have to just enjoy where we are whilst we're waiting for the things that we want to happen. So this Sabian symbol being activated as the sun conjoins Mercury shows us how we need to approach this. Being patient, which is a tough word when we're in Aries land. Now, 15th of April, Mercury conjoins Chiron. Hello, we've been here before because on the 20th of March, Mercury conjoins Chiron. So we have a situation here where Mercury is going to be meeting with Chiron 3 times, 20th of March, 15th of April and the 7th of May. So by the 7th of May, we have completed the healing. Mercury conjunct Chiron is, firstly, the first thing that comes to mind is about our mental health, your own mental health. How well are you taking care of your mental health? Some of us, and I include myself in this because I have suffered with depression. I had very, very serious depression for many, many years. Now I'm not so depressed, but I still have quite severe anxiety. So it is incredibly important for me to have good practices in place to give myself as much defense against anxiety and sort of general mental health issues, just feeling like completely overwhelmed with everything. I get overwhelmed incredibly easily. My natal Mercury, in fact, is in Aries, which is why this Mercury retrograde is going to be just, kind of dominoes in my chart, because I have a lot of planets in Aries. So I have to have these things in place to ensure that I am doing the best for myself to keep my mental health straight. And Mercury conjunct Chiron for everybody is going to be bringing that same message in the house, in the part of your chart, in the part of your life where this is happening. How is your mental health being affected? It might also speak of having healing conversations, but maybe they are also a little bit painful. Sometimes we are feeling a bit vulnerable with Chiron because it speaks of our woundedness, our pain that we are carrying, our suffering. We don't want to suffer, but we've all suffered somewhere in life. We all have scars, and sometimes it can be really helpful to talk about those things. Mercury, it might be actual talk therapy. It might be talking with a friend, or it might be looking in the mirror and talking to yourself and giving yourself some affirmations or mantras, whatever works for you, to find the words that will help your healing. Because self-talk, Mercury and Aries, how you talk to yourself can be healing or harmful. How you talk to yourself can be healing or harmful. If you remember nothing else from this recording, just remember that bit, because it is so powerful. The inner voice is incredibly powerful because we tend to listen to it, because it tends to be based on the voices that we heard when we were growing up, either our parents or caregivers, and it can then become the voice of the people that we love or the people that we look up to. We've got all these other voices around us, but Mercury conjunct Chiron is very, very interested in your voice. How are you speaking to yourself? Chiron can also speak of the bridge. Generally speaking, he orbits between Saturn and Uranus. There are some times when he kind of goes outside of that, but generally he is the bridge between Saturn, the planet of restriction and limitation, and Uranus, the planet of freedom. So we have to go through Chiron, we have to go through healing, we have to go through the pain and find a way to sort of deal with that suffering to find our freedom. So it is super, super powerful. Chiron is such an amazing character. And he also can speak of our special skills as well, because these are the things that have been forged through our experience in life. All the things that we, got wrong, and the failures and the mistakes and the problems and the pain and the hurt, this kind of becomes this pool of experience that we can dip into, and it shapes us. And, in time, we can give those gifts, those perspectives, those teachings to others, whether it's just others in our family, or maybe we go on to become some kind of healer or carer or mentor or teacher. Remember, Chiron, not just the wounded healer, he is a mentor and a teacher as well. So we are receiving powerful teachings from the universe. Mercury is getting the story for us and telling us that we need to listen to these stories of healing. Focus on your mental health and that inner voice. Mercury then squares Ceres, 16th of April. So now we've got something about what are you feeding your mind? How are you feeding your mind? Are you feeding it with positive news, interesting stories? Are you feeding it with, your studies, things that really make you think hard and you want to learn about? It might be a difficult topic to study. Ceres is in Capricorn. It might be difficult, but it sort of feeds you at the same time. Or are you reading stuff that makes you feel negative, that makes you just feel angry? So Mercury square Ceres is just kind of asking us to address, what is it that you're feeding your mind? 19th of April, Mercury conjoins Venus at 17 degrees of Aries. So Mercury conjunct Venus is now bringing the heart and the mind together. It's only one hit. There is only one connection between Mercury and Venus during this retrograde. So heart and mind comes together. So we've looked at, how am I talking to myself? Am I giving myself good things to think about? Am I helping myself? Am I feeding my mind in a productive way? And now you can bring the heart and mind together. And maybe this is talking about relationships. It could even be talking about money. That these are the things that are on the mind. But it also might be aligning us to our values, because Venus, being love and money, she kind of speaks to the things that are precious to us. What is most important? Now we're aware, we're fully aware, we're merging with what is most important. So this, I feel, is really productive. It's really helpful. This Mercury retrograde is taking us on quite a journey. It's a powerful journey, but I feel it's incredibly potent and is really going to kind of spring us forward as time goes on. On the 25th of April, this is when Mercury stations direct. And Mercury will station direct with an asteroid called Eurydice. So basically the story goes that Eurydice was the wife of Orpheus, and very sadly she died and she was taken down to the underworld, to the world of Hades, which is where all the souls would go. And Orpheus was really not happy about this. He was just bereft. And so he went down into Hades and he managed to charm Hades, to charm Pluto with his songs and his poetry. He was an incredible musician. Everything and everyone, even the trees, would stop to listen to Orpheus. And so Pluto, Hades, gave permission for Eurydice to leave Hades and come back to life. And Orpheus was like, yay, this is amazing. Okay, we're going out of the tunnels. And Hades said, hang on a second. Don't turn around to see if she's following you. That is my one instruction to you. You must not turn back to see if she is following you. You've got to just keep going until you're clear of Hades. So I'm sure Orpheus thought, that's easy, I can do that. But they were walking through a particularly rocky and difficult area, and just for a moment he didn't hear his wife's footsteps, and he turned around to see if she was okay, and that was it. She disappeared back to Hades. So of course the point of this story really is that once it's dead and gone, it's dead and gone. That's really, it sounds a bit harsh, which is a little like Aries speaking plainly. So I'll speak plainly about Eurydice, that the asteroids can represent the idea of things that have irrevocably changed and the acceptance of that. Because obviously, Orpheus wasn't moving on. He was making some great music, but he just wasn't moving on from this situation. He wasn't allowing himself to grieve. He was trying to just get back what he had instead of grieving what was lost and then moving on with his life. And so Eurydice can bring up many of these kinds of stories, that there is something now that we need to release, let go of, allow it to pass, so that we can go on with our lives and we can move forwards. And it might just be a small thing that we just kind of realize, okay, yeah, I need to let that go now. That's it now. I'm done now with this, so that I can clear my head. And in fact, the Sabian symbol of the station direct is nature spirits are seen at work in the light of sunset. One of my favorite symbols. It's so beautiful because sunset is an in-between time. And these in-between times, so sunset, midnight, midday, sunrise, these are liminal spaces. They're not one thing or the other. They're a space between day and night, or morning and afternoon. So it is naturally magical and opens us up to the invisible worlds. It's like being on the borders between this material reality and the other realities, the other worlds, whether it's spirit world or whatever you want to call it. So we're at this gateway between these two worlds, especially as Mercury is stationing. It's almost as if he's come to a stop. We know that's just an optical illusion, but in space, it seems as though Mercury has stopped. The mind stops. Everything stops. Time stops. Mercury retrograde talks about cosmic time. That's why we tend to get so frustrated with Mercury retrograde, because there are delays. But delay, the idea of being delayed, is a human concept. There is no time in spirit. Time is a human concept, an earthly concept. There is no time in spirit. Everything, past, present, future, is existing in the now. That's how we can travel between these different timelines, so to speak. So Mercury retrograde can appear as delays because Mercury is saying, never mind about human time. This is about connecting you with the cosmic story, your part in a much bigger story. And here we are seeing it at this magical moment when everything seems to stop. And now all the nature spirits, now the spirits are around us. We perceive them, we sense them, we feel them. Now it might literally be nature spirits like your local tree spirit or your local genius loci, the spirit of the land that you live on. Or it might be the fae, the fairy folk, or the gnomes, or it might just be your personal spirit helpers or your ancestors. So there are helpers, there are hidden helpers that are becoming visible. Maybe for some of us, it might be literally people, the people in our lives that actually we realize this person was helping me. Maybe I didn't see it like that before. Maybe I assumed that they were working against me, or maybe I just didn't like what they were doing, but actually this has helped me. So there's a certain change of perspective. We've moved from the disappointment of the Sabian symbol at the beginning of this retrograde, the large audience confronting the disappointing performer. We've moved from disappointment to realizing there is help. There's help here. I'm being helped. The universe is helping me. People are helping me. And maybe too, now I know how to help myself. This concludes my reading for Mercury retrograde in Aries. I hope you found this recording helpful, and I wish you many blessings on your path.